everyone. Today I'm here with Michelle Wilson, who's an ENFP. You may know her from YouTube. I recently found her channel, and so I've been sort of name dropping her a little bit on things because one thing I really admire and noticed about some of the things you've said about typology is I just like your word choice, and I struggle to find words sometimes to explain what I see. And so there's been a few times where I've been like, I'm gonna say this word, but I didn't come up with it. Like in the last video I did, I was like, FINTI I think is bias, but I did not come up with that. Michelle did. So would you like to sort of introduce yourself and maybe tell people about your channel if they've never heard of it before?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle, like she said. My channel is a bunch of random stuff because I will not be tied down. So I do like MBTI stuff. I normally keep it more generalized, but sometimes if I'm going to talk about a type, I probably talk about my own type. But not always. I guess there's no pattern there. You can't find a pattern with me. Never mind. I'm not even going to try. And then I do music and art and then just random discussion videos. My favorite type of video is actually to do discussion videos where I talk about like controversial topics because I love hearing people's opinions.
Yeah. I really like the sort of longer videos too. Like you have your like live streams, like the philosophical Fridays. I've been really enjoying doing longer videos on my channel too, even though maybe it won't attract as many people. I feel like the conversations could be really interesting. And so today, Michelle's a very creative person, clearly. I mean, you just listed like all these things that you do. And I was looking back at some of my older videos, and I made a video like a long time ago about I claimed that ENFP and ENFJs work really well together as sort of creative partners. And if you work in a creative field, or even if you were in school or did anything creative like growing up, it attracts a lot of NFs. And so if not always, any type can be involved in that. But maybe if you're an NF wanting to meet other NFs, like that is sort of the place to be. And I know I've mentioned this to Michelle before, but in my experience, it's very interesting because I had a lot of INFP and ENFP friends growing up. And there's sort of this thing where NFJs and NFPs are attracted to the same sorts of things sometimes, but then they approach it completely differently. And I would like to talk more about in this video, like ways that these types can work together and maybe some of your experiences specifically with the creative process, how like with our opposite functions, we can help each other create something even more awesome than if we were just surrounded by the same type. Because even if there's conflict there, you know, like if it was just a group of NFJs creating something or a group of NFPs creating something, then, you know, it might not produce something as interesting. At least that's my opinion.
I'm a little scared of the idea of a group of ENFPs doing something. We need someone who can like tie us down, or one of us will have to like take charge. And
that's actually something I'm dealing with at work is there's a lot of graphic designers that are NFPs, and I'm like the marketer supposed to market their things, and I feel outnumbered, and I don't know how to communicate without accidentally offending about the idea and stuff. And it's just a very NFP dominated culture that I am trying to navigate and bring my NI insights in a way that's not making them feel like I'm trying to pin them down to one thing, you know?
Yeah, I can definitely respect that. But at the same time, I mean, I don't know if I can speak for all NFPs, but myself specifically, I know that sometimes I get too attached to certain ideas that aren't very good. Um, and I can easily come up with new ideas, but sometimes I get really attached to one because I really like it. And
Ooh,
then someone comes in and is like, that's not possible. That's a terrible idea. And I can be a little butthurt, but I actually
ooh,
like that feedback because I want
okay.
my ideas to be better. Myself personally, like I seek out negative feedback.
Uh-huh. And not all ENFPs are going to be that mature.
Probably not.
Well, yeah, I've been in scenarios with ENFPs being very attached to their idea as theirs. And maybe I'm viewing it from an FE of like, oh, we're collaborating, brainstorming together to pick the best idea. And I mean, and then I'll say, oh, actually, there's a problem with that idea because it's not as beneficial to the group. And then sometimes it'll be like, well, art is in the eye of the beholder. Well, art is subjective, okay?
That definitely sounds like an FI response.
And then I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, it's great. It's a great idea. I'm sorry. Uh,
No, you gotta hold strong. You just gotta you gotta stroke the FI ego a little bit. Like, hey, I really like where you're coming from. These are some really great ideas, and here's some ways that we can make it more accessible.
Ooh, accessible. That's a good word. I'll need to make sure that I don't say this isn't working for people or anything that is too.
Yeah, that can be a scary. Because we probably think we're like, oh, it will work so well with so many people, and then if someone comes in and says that's not going to work, then we'll probably get really upset. Like, is our judgment that bad?
Oh, that's so sad. At least they generate ideas, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, that's something we'll never stop doing.
yeah,
Except, I think of an example of Leslie Knope. I don't know how much you watch Parks and Rec.
not as much, but I've seen it, yeah.
Okay, so there's this one season and a specific episode that I think of when an NFP gets put under too much pressure. So Leslie Knope is this character like known for coming up with really great ideas. And one episode, she makes everyone go on this like hiking trip where they all go camping so they can generate ideas, right? And everyone's like, oh, but she always has ideas, and whatever her idea is, we normally go with. And she admits like halfway through the episode that she doesn't have an idea, and she's trying to get them to like help her spark an idea. And she gets like really upset because she can't come up with an idea and nothing's working. And then her coworker Ron like makes her go to sleep, and she wakes up with like 5,000 ideas.
Oh, wait, what type do you think she is?
I think she's 100% an ENFP.
Oh, okay, yeah. I like saw someone online recently say that they thought she was an ENFJ, and I was like, mm-mm, no.
No.
I
She
always
has
saw
no
NE. Yeah, I always saw NE, but I wasn't sure how or anything because it's one of those shows I never got really into it. It would be just like something that would be on, you know. So
Yeah.
I didn't pay as much attention, but that's so interesting. And is that do you relate to like the I just need to go to sleep and I'll find some?
Right. And I think like the biggest issue in that episode was that she was under pressure to create an idea.
Oh
And she
yeah.
felt like it had to be better than her last idea. So she was turning down all of her ideas because none of them were good enough in a way, which is definitely something I relate
Oh,
to. If I feel like I need to make an idea and it needs to be good, then none of them are good enough, and nothing that I come up with is good enough. And then I feel
interesting.
like I have no capabilities at all.
Interesting because I don't really like to be under pressure, but at the same time, like if I have a deadline or if there is pressure where I just have to pick something, it actually helps me come up with ideas because I begin to allow myself to even entertain the bad ideas because I realize that I have to.
Right, because for you, the end goal, the salute, like the
Mhm.
final thing is the most important thing,
Mhm.
not how great it is. It's
Yeah.
done. Whereas
Yeah.
I feel like NFPs were definitely like, this needs to be the best thing ever because that FI, we want to be
Oh.
really proud about what we're.
Yeah. I don't I wouldn't say I need to be proud of my ideas. I feel like I would say I take more pride in being someone that continuously makes ideas and continuously goes after them and actually tries to execute them, because I believe that if I go for it, then over time the ideas are going to get better and better. And as long as I can say that I'm creating and that I'm trying, like I care more about that, I would say, than like actually, I guess, having an attachment to the idea being like good. Or, well, would you say, and okay, I'm gonna ask you this and then I'm gonna, well, would you say it's accurate that for you the creative process is like self-expression?
Um, yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, actually, I'm going to ask you this instead, is how would you describe the creative process for you? And don't worry, I guess, that much about being speaking on behalf of ENFPs or anything. Just
Okay. So my creative process. Um, I'll use my novel as an example because
mm,
it's concrete and hopefully, I don't know if it's the exact same every time. Um, but oftentimes it starts with an epiphany kind of idea, like,
mm,
oh, I really like that. And then we, like I think about the idea and I start brainstorming different ways to make the idea happen. So like with my novel, I just started brainstorming a bunch of like possible scenes, a bunch of like character potentials, and then
so question, what does that initial epiphany feel like for you?
oh, it feels like I've just come up with the greatest thing in the world.
And are you actively thinking about stuff because your FI feels like writing, or does it just pop into your head?
Normally, it just pops in my head. Like for any story idea I've had, normally it's the concept that gets me going. Like recently, I've been working on a short story with a friend, and he said something like, what if everyone was just honest about how they feel all the time? And we were talking about depression and stuff. So I was like, what if people were always thinking about, well, speaking honestly about their depression and how they feel? And then I instantly had an idea for a story that could
Mm.
go along with that. Um, and it wasn't like what happened in the story, it was the overall concept and message of the story is what I had, and no
Interesting.
details, just like a vague idea. This is what I want. And then I just started writing. And normally I just have
Oh.
faith that like the process will get me the end result of, I guess, the idea. Like, and that's normally how it is. Like, I don't have like a whole story in mind almost ever when I'm writing. I just have a concept that I want to portray.
That is so interesting. And then it's almost like you start with this NE that's sort of vague, and then like the SI details, you fill it in as you go. Is that
Right. Yeah.
hmm. Yeah, in order for me to even begin, I need something to be a lot more like precise. And it could be hard for me to even get started. And I think that could be connected to why maybe I am more likely to take pride in the fact that I did it. Um, because that's the hardest part, is just to start. And it's like I use SE, but it's still not a preferred function. And so it can still be sort of stressful to do. Um, so like for example, like I work part-time at a new thought spiritual movement, and it's like an organization that they talk sort of about like spiritual tools versus like a sort of dogma or doctrine or like a religion. It's just very much like how to incorporate mindfulness in your life, like things like that. And I was asked like to start contributing to the blog if I wanted. And I was asked that in December, and I haven't come up with any idea yet. Even though when I talk to people about it, it's like, what do you mean? You're always talking about things like that. You're always talking about like metaphysics and, you know, like spirituality and all that. It's like, I don't really know how to just brainstorm any really idea. And like what I'm like ruminating on now is like, what is like a niche that I can go for that I can really make my own? Like, is this going to be like some examples I have are like spiritual principles for millennials and like educational, or is it going to be like my experience? Should I talk just about mindfulness to start? Should I show like how I'm incorporating them in my life, or should it be more preachy, or should it be like, does it need to have like something to sort of encapsulate all of it? Because like the lady who showed me the blog, there's like all of these different headers, like she showed me, what is it, I guess the menu of like the different places that my blog could go. That completely overwhelmed me. I was like, oh, like, am I applying the principles, or am I demonstrating them, or am I gearing toward millennials, or am I gearing toward everyone? And so like I get very overwhelmed to where I can't even start brainstorming. I have to make myself brainstorm. But if I care about something a lot, it's always nagging at the back of my head to the point where eventually I'll just be like, duh, so I'm just going to do this. And then when I do it, it's normally like really good. But the process is a lot of just in the background, I would say. Because then whenever I attack, it's very like well thought out. It's like, oh, I know who this is targeting, and I know that they're going to like it, and I know that I'm going to make them like it because this is a topic that they are interested in, and it's something that I could speak to. And it's like just trying to find that is the hardest part.
So what I was like imagining while you were talking that entire time is this analogy I've seen of the difference between introverted and extroverted intuition. So essentially imagine a pyramid, right? NI starts at the bottom. Bottom is the baseline assumptions, the common assumptions that can always be there. And then slowly they build up more and more assumptions until they get to like this pinpoint idea. Whereas NE is always the pinpoint idea and has to work outward to make sure that their idea is actually valid and accurate. And what it sounds like is your creative process is almost the embodiment of that, where you're like, okay, I have so much to work with. I need to figure out how to narrow it down. And then once you've narrowed it down, it becomes easier for you. But when you have too much, you're just like, there's too much stuff going on. How in the heck am I supposed to ever start when there's just too many things?
Yes. Yeah. And NE can be very overwhelming too. But what I found that some NFPs could do is maybe have an easier time starting with just sort of something general, like, oh, I want to share some of my spiritual beliefs or something. And just say whatever your FI wants and maybe not think about targeting it to the audience. But the thing is that the audience typically enjoys, well, in general, I believe that people want to see what is real. And if you're creating something that's real to you, then someone is going to find it interesting. You just don't know who. Where for me, I'm like really trying to target something. And I don't have, like strong introverted judging. And so I don't even know what would be real, like to me in that way.
Yeah, and I'm also thinking just about the combination of having lead extroverted feeling. You want to make sure that the people who see your material really enjoy it. And so that's
Yeah.
like your ultimate goal is other people enjoying what you put out
Yes.
there. And then your introverted intuition says this needs to mean something. So they
Yeah.
need to enjoy it and it needs to mean something. And so
Yeah.
everything gets ruled out because it either doesn't mean enough or it's not going to get everyone's enjoyment. So you're probably throwing out a lot of ideas really just on,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, cuz and then I like it's like whenever I look at like art that I appreciate and or like writing or anything like that, I really admire people that seem to just have this very streamlined way of like, oh, like that's their thing, you know? Although I think NE is more likely to find their thing just by exploring. Like over time, maybe it'll become more of like a vibe that fits you. But I like never want to stray away from like my vibe. Like maybe like similarly, like your FI is very like consistent to you. Like I only want to create ideas that like really fit me and that I can say something about. Like I don't want to like talk about something that I don't know or I don't. That also could be just afraid to explore, you know, ideas that I don't typically have. You know, not that I would be bad at it, but I know that I would be better at the ideas that I know more about. You know.
Hmm.
Um.
So I'm like, I almost like want to just give you advice, like how
Oh,
to
you can. You totally can. I'm actually gonna fill up my coffee too because I forgot
okay.
to do that. But yeah.
Um, what I'm thinking is just like, why don't you start with things like start thinking about things that, you know, you have recognized and you've noticed other people possibly need. Like, even if it's not like one particular um, group of people, I'm sure you've noticed that there are things that people need. I mean, any FE and I person I talk to
Oh
think
yeah.
about that all the time. So you have plenty of those, I'm sure, like concepts that you think about pretty regularly. So start with the things that you know and you're confident in, and then narrow down which one means the most for you to start now.
Yeah, the hard part is what do I know? What do I have to say? You know? And sometimes
Oh,
I feel I need to be prompted.
so what if I gave you a challenge? You
Ooh.
said that a year ago you made a challenge where you were making a video a day and
Yeah.
you just made one every day, and you said you do really well with timelines and deadlines. So what if you just write an article a day? It doesn't matter if you ever publish any of them, you just write one
Yeah.
and
Ooh, that could be
don't care about
interesting. And like even if it's not like a real article, even if I just pretended like, oh, what if I had to do something right now and then just like wrote like 500 words, just like stream of consciousness about a topic, and then I could go back and edit it later. That's always the hardest part for me is that I like forget that I could edit it later,
it. Hmm.
and I want it to be almost like perfect before I even say anything or
Yeah.
before I even try. And like, and I know like some other like NFJ friends like in college, like when I'd like have like a paper due or something, it'd be the thing of like staring intensely at this like white Microsoft Word, just being like, I can't.
Let me be struck with perfection.
Yes. It's like, all right, I'm ready.
No, I think that's actually just a really common problem that a lot of
Mm.
writers have, is that we have this expectation that it's going to be perfect coming
Yeah.
out. I even have that expectation sometimes, and I'll erase way huge sections of things I've already written because I just hate it. But this is something that my English teacher told me that really affected me. And basically what she said is, you know, your rough draft is like mud and it's going to be ugly. It's going to be disgusting, but you cannot make a sculpture without the material to start. And you don't just start out making a beautiful sculpture. You have to like make it ugly and then mold it, and then you can refine it and add details.
Yeah, and I think I do need to do that more, because even like advice that Crystal, my ENFP friend, for those who don't know, gave me about that same blog, is she just started telling me to Google similar blogs and see what they're talking about and see how I could do it better, or like a different idea that they haven't already said. And like, you know, like Dave Superpowers talks about how NE gathers ideas and I organize ideas, and I'm pretty sure that I'm consumed last. So that's something that I really just forget to do. I mean, there's actually a lot of YouTube channels out there that I've never even seen. Like, people had to actually tell me about your channel, because I don't even like watch. I don't even like look to see what's going on a lot of the time, which could really hold me back. And I think is a really amazing thing that NE-DOMs have.
My world is living in consume. Just consume, consume, consume. Give me more.
You really do. And I mean, I see that you participate in a lot of like live stream, or like you're like always watching, you know, always sort of lurking and like picking things up, it seems like.
Yes. Well, because for me, I just like, I can't just manifest this information on my own, because extroverted intuition is external and outside of me.
Mm-hmm.
I need to see everything else that's going on. I need to pull in more, because otherwise I stagnate and I'm just repeating the same things over and over. And I'm not going to come up with anything new. That's literally the opposite of NI, whereas NI is just like, let me ruminate over this until I like really perfect the idea. Extroverted intuition is like, let me see everything that's out there so I can connect these two different things. Like, I'll watch one live stream and they'll say one thing that I'm like, oh, that reminds me of this other thing. These two ideas are related. We need to do something with the connection between the two.
Oh, yeah.
And that's like a thing that I'm doing probably too much, because my last thing is sleep. So my last thing is actually like going through everything and organizing and making sure I'm not overwhelming myself.
Interesting. Yeah, I think whenever I'm trying to come up with an idea, I really am thinking like, what do these people need that they don't already have, or that they maybe haven't even considered? What do they need to know? What is something meaningful to them? Even if I was to do art or a creative writing sort of thing, I would be thinking, what do they need to feel? And then I would sort of like think about the world today and think, seems like people are really, okay, so this is what I would say if I was to do like creative writing, which I don't really do. Seems like people are really afraid right now in general. So what is something that I can do to make them less afraid? And what emotion would I need to convey in order to make them less afraid? Like, that would be like something that I would think as an example. But I wouldn't know what the concept was. It seems like you pick up the concepts, you know.
Yeah, I would think exactly the exact opposite. Like, oh man, we need to make people feel more secure. Okay, why do we need to make people feel more secure? Okay, how am I going to make people feel more secure? And like work my way backwards. Like, this needs to happen is normally like just a thought that I have really regularly.
Interesting.
Which is why I call it like an epiphany, because it just feels like really important, like something needs to be acted upon right this very minute. That's
something I want to go back to too is when you mentioned like my when I started my YouTube channel. So whenever whenever I started I uploaded my first video in like 2015, but in 2017 I decided like Like, I mean, I was thinking about type literally all day, every day. I like had met a few friends from YouTube and like uh forums and stuff, and I was literally like creating theories all day, every day, and I just wasn't sharing any of them. And I was like, I really need to just get in the habit of this at some point. Like, it gets to the point, I think, for me where I'm like, I need to just really say something, like anything. Um, and so I challenged myself to just do one thing a day and try and make it quick. And then, like, that's why I did my series of like, how do I view each of the types? Because that was the idea that seems like the most low-hanging fruit to me. I'm almost always looking for low-hanging fruit, and I found when working with NFPs that they don't like that. They want to make it more interesting. And I guess I think the low-hanging fruit, it's there for a reason, because nobody's done it for some reason, or it's like, it's there, it's easy, it takes less effort, and it's gonna maximize people in a way that will take less effort for me and a lot of a lot of benefit to them compared to the effort. So, but then really my goal with even doing the 30-day challenge I did was to get myself in the habit and to get myself emotionally comfortable with the idea of creating. And then once I had more of an audience, once I saw people responding to what I was doing, then I just got in the flow where it was like, oh, someone had a comment, or that reminds me of this, I'm going to do this. And then like, now I'm at the point, which with my videos, I would say I'm almost at the point where like my creation and me are very connected, where it's just so easy once I have an idea to just be like, well, and it's not like that with everything, but that's like almost my goal, is like every time I like, maybe I want to start talking more about spirituality, I'm going to need to figure out how to get more comfortable first, because now that talking about Myers-Briggs is a habit, every day I don't even, I just think, okay, I have some free time, let's do a video. What should it be? Oh, people need to know this right now. Okay, I'll just do that then.
Interesting. That's so different. I have like lists and lists of ideas that I'm like collecting, but then I'll just like think about them later and be like, nah, I'm not in the mood to do that one right now. And then I'll just like look through my list of ideas.
I do have a list of ideas as well, because I think that the ratio now of how many ideas I get versus how much time I have to do them is like getting like crazy, to where if I ever am unsure, I'll just like look at the list and pick from that. But it's never hard. It's like, it's almost like once I get comfortable, it's never hard to find the idea. It's almost like carving out a path for that idea to like live.
It sounds so introverted intuition.
Like a little funnel.
Path.
Yeah. And then things just create itself. I mean, like Crystal and I with our Synchronic Saturdays, if anyone watches that, like, we were like, what should this podcast be about? Well, let's just start with sort of talking about each of the functions. And then now we're talking about the functions as a spectrum. But every single time that we're done with an episode, I'm like, okay, now that we've talked about this, that leads to this. Like, it just keeps going, like sort of snaking around, to where I literally feel like the idea is just like has a life of its own. Like, I don't even have to create it anymore. Like, I created the path and now it's just going. It's so weird. I've never thought of it like that.
No, and I think what you're saying right there is exactly why NFPs and NFJs work really well together for creating ideas.
Yeah.
You talk many times about how like just generating the idea and just like having that is the most difficult part. But for the NFP, having some kind of theme or like any kind of unification between ideas is just like non-existent. So like when we pair up, the NFJ is like, okay, here's our theme, and the NFP is like, okay, here's 20 things about that theme, and then the NFJ
Yeah.
like, this is the most relevant, so let's do this.
Yeah. That's so real. So I'm curious. So tell us a little bit about like what I guess either sort of jobs you had or projects or things you've been on where maybe you've worked with either NFPs or NFJs and how you've sort of sensed that difference. If
Okay.
any anecdote comes to mind for you.
Um, Let me mull it over for a second.
Do you need a second, you think?
Um, do you need to use the restroom?
Oh no.
Oh.
I was thinking of something else I can say while you're thinking,
Okay.
but not if it was going to distract you.
No, it won't distract me. Go ahead.
I was just going to say too, I worked as a startup journalist, and one time an ENFP that worked there made us take an hour out of our day. It reminds me of like the Leslie Knope thing that you said, to think about ways to make more money for the company, like just fun things to do. And I was annoyed by that because I thought I feel like I know, or at that point I was like, I know what we should be doing, and we aren't doing any of the things. I've already recommended what we need to be doing. It was sort of my mindset. I was reluctant. It seemed like, why would I just crap things on a page when it's very obvious that we should be doing like sponsored content because everybody else is doing it. There's no reason why we're not doing it. Was sort of my thing. And it's like, I guess I do like to look for I like to look for the low-hanging fruit that is like would be so little effort for us to do but can be so much reward, and to where it's like, why aren't we doing that? There's no reason to not, sort of thing. Even if it's not like the most mind-blowing idea you've ever heard, it's just sort of like, let's at least make sure that we're doing all the things that we could be doing before we start like branching outside the box, is how I would think. But I just wanted to share that I was pleasantly surprised by that activity. And what we ended up deciding, or an idea that we ended up doing that I thought was kind of cool, is in Kansas City, where I live, there's this thing like called First Fridays, where like downtown, every first Friday of the month, there's like artists and like booths and stuff like that. And one of the ideas that came to be from that discussion was that we should be there, like with some startup entrepreneurs, just sort of hanging out, like maybe sell our t-shirts and just let people know that we exist as an online magazine. And that was cool because I never would have thought of that. That's
Right.
very outside the box. But, we got a lot of subscribers from that, and it was fun, like our goal was to get subscribers. And my mind is I could be very one-track mind of, let's follow down this path, like let's do what we need to do. But I don't, I think I'm good if someone makes me sit down, or if I think to sit down and brainstorm. It's just not what I do. But like when I do, I do enjoy doing it, and I often surprise myself. But so yeah, that's just, I guess, an example of how that ENFP, even though I was annoyed, helped us all come up with ideas. He made us, it was like 5 minutes, write down as many ideas as possible. Don't stop writing for the entire 5 minutes. But yeah.
I love that. I love that. I love that kind of brainstorming. Um,
Yeah.
that's That's really funny. You're just like, obviously, this is what we need to do. Why are we wasting our time with this activity? Like, but
Yeah.
this is like, there's no need for this, but in the end you were actually convinced that there was a need because a stronger idea, which still kind of had your premise of being sponsored in a way, like it's related to being sponsored. You're like going down to a public arena where there's a lot of people who are already kind of interested in that topic
Mhm.
of like, you said it's like spiritual kind of stuff for the newspaper or the magazine.
Oh, that one, I'm doing I do spiritual stuff like now, but then it was
Oh,
like startup entrepreneurs. And so it was still
okay.
like somewhat related. But yeah, and I think the truth probably is that people should be, listening to what the NI user says about what needs to be done while also incorporating like the times to think outside the box. Like
Hmm.
it's like sometimes just a struggle, I think, for organizations or for teams to know how to do both.
Yeah.
But yeah. Did you think of an idea or of a time?
Yeah, I did actually, because what I do for my work now, in a way, you could see the creative aspect of it. I mean, most of my time is spent dealing with spreadsheets and organizing paperwork, but I do go to a lot of meetings with the senior leadership of my site, um, and we talk about, where the areas of concern are in the site and how we can overcome them. And we're in sales, so like the main thing that you have to do, like, selling is easy. People want the product that we sell. All we need to do is actually sell it. But what's difficult is getting the specialists engaged in doing everything that they need to in order to make the sales, because the sales are easy, but feeling good about your work is the hard part. And so we often are just like, here's the issue. My boss will be like, okay, tell me what's going on. What problems do you see? And then the managers are like, we see X, Y, and Z. And then the boss is like, okay, what can we do about X, Y, and Z? And this is where I'm always like, what if we did this? What if we did this? Like just a bunch of stuff. But then my NFJ, I think she's an ENFJ coworker, she normally can come in and say, here's our ultimate goal, and here's something that has worked for me in the past, and here's why, because when you do X, Y, and Z, it'll get them thinking about why and blah, 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 blah. Whereas mine, I'm not thinking about, how the activity is going to help them get there. I just think, oh, this activity and what they're doing is related. Like, I'm just
Mhm.
like, oh, these two things are related, so this might actually help. And then the NFJ is like, here's how we can actually use it. I don't know if I'm
Yeah,
describing it very
that
well.
makes sense. Sometimes for me, it seems like NFPs aren't being intentional enough about actually hitting their goal.
Hmm.
And it depends on the scenario. Like, um, I would say in business settings, um, when there is more of like a goal that you like actually have to make. Um, I don't know if NJ, if that would be like better suited, or if maybe it's just more important for NPs to keep that in mind in that setting. But on the other hand, with like creative writing or like art or like sculpting or anything like that, there's not really a goal. There's less of an importance to like have that sort of NI connection. Like it really can be whatever you want. You know what I mean?
Except I would say, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I'll use my novel again as as an
Mm-hmm.
example. Um, so my novel started off with this like epiphany idea, like, oh my gosh, what if this was my main antagonist? And then I kind of like built it out from there. But as I started building out, I started seeing a way that there could be this long-term theme throughout the whole thing. I didn't know how I'm going to make the theme happen, but I did have this like long-term, this is how I can show the growth for the character, but also make it an analogy for society, and like wanting to put in my philosophy. So there is intention. It's just it's harder for us to direct the intention because we see so many ways to direct the intention that they're not always working together.
Yeah, and I also think that what's intentional, like, okay, so NI is subjective and NE is objective. And so when I'm intentional, I have something in mind that I want people to feel or think after they, I mean, either are watching one of my videos or when they would read an article I wrote, or even like whenever I was in music or in theater or anything or like that, or even in improv. Like I like had something in mind that I wanted. And I think that NE, it's like you could be very like precise and very like um what's the word maybe? I feel like intentional's not the best word, but it's like everything's connected, like it's a web. It's very intricate. Like it is very intricate, and all of the pieces are working together. But um, everybody is gonna pick something from it completely different, and that's what I think is really like cool about it, because like an NE work of art, in my opinion, could mean so many different things to so many different people for so many different reasons, you know?
Right. And actually, while you were saying that, I was thinking of two examples.
Mm-hmm.
ENFJ was sharing some writing with me, and I was sharing some of my writing. And we were both describing like a forest scene situation, or like a nature scene. I guess nature is probably the better. It wasn't necessarily a forest, but like nature, trees, earth. And the way that I describe things is I have my character's impression of everything, and I keep things vague so that the reader can imagine whatever they like. I just want to have a vague impression on them and let them fill in the details however they want. Whereas the ENFJ, with her writing, it was very concrete things that she was saying, like very SE, like feeling the earth underneath her back, and like um, watching the grass. I mean, I'm making things up. I don't know if these are exactly the things that she mentioned, but it was like I could see a very, very specific image, and it was the image that she wanted to portray. Whereas mine is, I want to portray an impression and let your creativity fill in the rest for you, because I don't want to control that part.
Yeah, and I think that it's interesting because I want to be directed like when I'm, well, in general. I mean, I appreciate NE art as well, but like if I'm watching like a movie or a TV show, like I want to be directed and see what the artist was going for. And sometimes if it's like up to you to decide what the artist was going for, I like it leaves me wanting more, but in a bad way.
Mm,
Like, at least for me, there are some people that do it right, but then I guess at the same time, like, what would be like a con for NJ? Like, how do you feel sometimes if you are either watching a movie or reading something where you feel like the artist is trying too hard to get you to see what they are trying to portray? Like, how does that feel?
the word I think is contrived. Like it just is like, or cliche. Cliche and contrived are like the first two words that I think of. Like, um, I was watching a video and this girl was saying that she was watching a show and she really didn't like this aspect of it. And basically, the characters kept saying what was happening and what was important. And she just said she didn't like that because it makes it seem like the person who's watching isn't going to be able to figure that out on themselves. They're being spoon-fed a little too much. And I think that's really what it is. Like and I was watching another video where it was talking about great dialogue. And one of the things that they mentioned as well is to not say things like, this is important, or say the thesis, have the characters say the thesis of what you want to get across. They said that the dialogue should show the thesis rather than tell the thesis. And I think that's really like the biggest takeaway is show versus tell. But I think no matter what your personality is, especially when it comes to writing, you can end up accidentally doing tell versus show. It's just an easy trap to fall into because you just want to get that idea across. So you're like, this is the idea. But you need to take some work to show it, because that's what the whole point of creative writing is about. If you were just telling it, that's an expose, that's nonfiction.
Yeah, that's very true. So yeah, it's almost like I forget what I know what I was gonna say is that it's funny you use the word cliche, because something I've said before is that I feel like NJs use a lot of cliches. I know that I do. And as a journalist, I would get cliches cut out of my writing a lot. And I do it, or I did it to sound conversational because I want it to feel like a conversation. And in general, when I think of cliches, I think that they are cliches because like they are cliche for a reason. Like if somebody repeats the same thing over and over and over, then that concept must be really important, you know? So I think sometimes if I were to use a cliche, it would remind people of the NI concept in a way that I'm trying to even think of an example. Do you have an example of a cliche that I could just like riff off of?
A cliche that I think of is like Romeo and Juliet, like two opposing sides falling in love with each other and having to like deal with each side hating each other. That's like the first thing that comes to my mind.
I'm trying to think of a phrase.
Or like carpe diem.
Yeah. Okay. Diamond in the rough. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If I were to say that, or easy as pie. Okay, well, now that I'm looking at cliche, actually, it says it's so overused to the point of losing its original meaning or effect. That's really interesting. I never really thought of it like that. But yeah, okay, I think sometimes if an NI user is afraid that people are not going to see the NI, they might want to use a term that has been used a lot before to remind people of that sort of NI idea that has existed throughout time. I don't know. I don't know why that is. Or like maybe, yeah, that could be a trap that we could get into, is like thinking, okay, well, even though this has already been said before, people aren't responding to the idea enough, or else it wouldn't be needed to be said again. And so maybe I can make them respond to this idea better, because we still are like having the same problems that we had from, like, there's a reason why we're still saying it. Like carpe diem, for example. People aren't seizing the day. Like they still aren't. And so clearly there's still work to do. You know what? So like that's like kind of, I think, the idea. But I don't know. it's annoying too.
Right. And the SI in me says that there's multiple associations to concepts that are cliche, like diamond in the rough or carpe diem. Like, oh, when I think carpe diem, I think of all these characters that said it and like the negative things that happened to them when they did, quote unquote, seize the day, or like people always say diamond in the rough, but they don't actually mean it, or all these other associations come to it because it is so oversaturated, that there is no clear NI for it because there is so much attached to the word. And
Yeah.
that's actually something I think a lot about with word choice, is that you have to think about the associations people have to the words. There are multiple associations to the words, and sometimes it is important to come up with new words.
Yeah, that's very true. I think that the associations thing can be hard for me to pick out. So, something I'm thinking about now is I feel like I can sometimes tell when a piece of art or a show or something sort of is the perfect marriage of NE and NI. And I can't think of any examples right now, but I feel like those that do are the ones that stand the test of time, like way more than the ones that don't. Like, it's easy for me to tell, like, oh, like that writer's room definitely had both because all of the bases are covered. You know what I mean?
I'm trying to think of an example now, too. I mean, I really like Tarantino, but I think he pretty much just writes it on his own. I don't know.
Oh, have you seen The Good Place?
Yes, I love that show.
Okay, I think The Good Place is actually a good example of that because there's a very clear NI theme, but they don't overdo it or put it in your face, and there's definitely some just like fun,
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that show so much. It cracks me up.
I love it too.
Watch it over and over again.
Me too.
Even though some of the characters are so annoying, but you just don't even care that they're annoying.
Yeah, and I think with that show, like, it makes me really think about how to apply this to like everyday life and like what does that mean about society today?
Yes.
That sort of thing.
Okay, you can probably relate to this, but I always struggle at work because whenever something happens and like, something corporate or whatever, I'm like, and this is just such a statement on society. I can't even handle it. I'm so depressed because this one little thing is happening. It is just one example of the bigger scheme of life. And
Oh my God, yes.
Can't handle this right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, I guess another thing I wanted to say too before I moved on to the next topic. See, I'm using NI even as I'm doing this.
I know, it's okay. It's good. That's what helps, because I could take any idea and run with it for way too long.
Yeah. What was I saying? I remember I was talking to you about the show Russian Doll, which is a
Yes.
really good show. And I personally think sometimes that something I find interesting is that NE users, because I feel like that show has a lot of NE themes in it personally. Did you get that as well?
Yeah, I think even just the fact that it keeps rebooting and she tries new things every time is very NE. It's like a metaphor for NE in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when I saw it. But and didn't Amy Poehler write that?
She helped write it. Yeah, she was one of the writers. And I was looking it up when we were talking about it that night. And actually, the main character was also one of the writers, like the girl who's the main character.
Yeah, and I think Amy Poehler is probably an NP. I don't know her type necessarily, but I've always gotten NE vibes from her. Would you agree, or are you unsure?
I actually would agree, and I feel like Tina Fey, who's somebody that she works with a lot, is an NTJ, an INTJ, actually.
Interesting. Um I've always thought that she was an INTP, but it's not something I've looked into enough to like make an actual opinion, but that's interesting.
All of that typing is based off one video I saw. I don't know if you've ever seen Seinfeld's like comedians in cars getting coffee.
Yeah.
It was one of those episodes, and I
Ah,
was like, I feel like she's an INTJ, but I could have
yeah.
just been misinterpreting, because sometimes it's hard to tell from the outside if someone's an INTJ or INTP unless you really, really consider that TETI divide.
Yeah, and I have never seen her in that sort of environment, but I think that in those sort of um I guess more casual conversations, it could be easier to type too. Um but yeah, oh gosh. I was also going to say, I remember I saw Seinfeld interview like Fred Armisen, and I personally believe that Fred is an ENFJ. I just relate to his style of comedy like above any other person. Like it's because the thing with I think Portlandia is very NI, but I think that Carrie Brownstein is also an NFJ. I'm not sure if she's an INFJ or an ENFJ, but in the show Portlandia, I think it lacks a little bit of NE that some people might just think this is weird. Like, what is this show? What is it? Like, I've seen that a lot. And
Oh, Portlandia is so great, but I mean, it probably helps that I lived in the Portland area, so I can like really relate to the
yeah,
stereotypes that they're talking about. Like
yeah.
feminist bookstores, just so spot on, and like they
It's like
did
a
this.
commentary of
Yes,
society.
yes, that's exactly what that show is. Like, I
hmm
think of this one episode where this guy works from home, and the wife is like, um, "Can you sign for or can you let the maintenance in?" And he's like, "I work from home. Like, can't you
Oh
do that?"
yeah.
And she's like, "No, you're gonna be home. Just let them in. Like, it's not gonna get in the way of your work." And then he starts this like whole committee of people who work from home and how they should be treated like their home is an office and blah 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 blah
Oh
blah.
my god, yes. I love that. And I like how I've noticed like an NFJ humor is sort of like very dramatic, like we're gonna start a movement, like or like the episode 2 where Fred was like, I'm gonna go against cell phone companies, I'm gonna make my own cell phone
Yes.
company.
I love that episode.
Something that okay, the show Portlandia, like I just another reason why I really believe it's NFJ is that the themes in it just come back in my life where almost everything in my life I could think of a Portlandia episode that relates to whatever I'm thinking at the moment, like very intently. And also like another thing is that's interesting in living in the Midwest is that if you watch Portlandia episodes from 10 years ago, then like we're finally catching up to some of the stuff, and it's like even funnier.
Oh my gosh, that's so hilarious. Um, I was even thinking I have an example of what's an NE show, and
Mm-hmm.
that's Doctor Who.
Oh my god, completely. And I'll tell you, I haven't watched it. I have
Oh,
never even wanted to.
it's so good. And actually, one of the criticisms of the more recent seasons is I'm pretty sure the writers an NFP, I think, just or at least an NP of some sort. But basically, it was like one of the main criticisms is that the writer was trying to keep a theme going throughout the like a character progression going throughout the whole season, but the execution was really poor. However, in the individual episodes, they were really good at getting it like spot on like a single episode where there was one theme through a short period of time rather
I've
than
just never understood why they would why there would need to be a new Doctor Who every time. Or isn't it like always a new doctor?
So the whole thing is he dies, and when he regenerates, he's a different person with a different personality. and that's like he could turn into a girl even, and in the most recent season he is a female. But like, because these time lords travel across space and time, they're full of like magic and energy, and so when they die, their energy like regenerates them in order to save their like soul or essence or whatever.
I actually do have to pee again.
Oh, okay.
And it always is so alarming for me, and I don't know if this is like bad SI too, but like I never like it's always like, oh. So you can keep talking about Doctor Who and explaining how it's NE if you'd like.
Okay. Doctor Who is probably one of the most obvious cases of NE because, one, they go to a new place every episode. Two, what happens in the episode is always something crazy and they have to think on the fly to solve said issue. Three, they're just exploring for the sake of exploring. I mean, come on. It's just so much any going into it. Just so many crazy things always happening. It just is. I don't even know what else to add to that. Except that I love Doctor Who. I love science and sci-fi, and just having a whole combination of it in a bunch of new situations all the time. It really gets the juices flowing and gets you thinking. So it's a lot of fun if you want to go on an adventure and never have the same experience twice. Just saying. But yeah. My little guinea pigs are asleep over here and they're just so cute. I can't even handle it. So adorable. Do 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 do
Hello.
Oh, hello. I ran out of things to say.
Oh no, you're fine. I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that ever since, I mean, I've gotten more curious about NE. Well, not now, as opposed to just thinking the show like is weird or pointless. I'm almost like wanting to just watch more NE things just to see like what that even is like.
It'll be good for you. It's exciting. NE is exciting.
Have you seen the movie Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind?
I love that movie so much.
I feel like that's the most ENFP thing I've ever heard. Well, like I've wondered if that couple was an ENFP ISTJ like duality sort of thing.
Ooh.
When I watched it.
Ooh, I could see that.
Because the whole thing about memories and like trying to erase them, it's
right.
So FI and SI to me.
Right, especially because they're just painful. They make you like feel bad. You don't want to have anything to do with them, but they're still connected, even though like they don't remember each other. Like that scene on the train where they're just like talking to each other and they have no idea like why they feel like talking to each other, and it's like.
Have you seen Arrested Development?
I have seen a couple of episodes.
Because here's what I would say about Arrested Development is that the show, it was picked up, or like it was canceled and then picked up by Netflix and all that stuff. The original show, like the first 3 seasons, are extremely NI to the point where there's almost not enough NE, and it was like sort of a cult favorite, and then it wasn't popular enough, and then it like was canceled. You have to look really carefully. You can't just have it on in the background and laugh. You have to be like paying attention. And at least for me, the thing that I find the funniest about it is that the main character is supposed to be the nice guy. I think he's like an ENFJ or something. He's supposed to be like, I'm the only good one in this family. But then there's all this ironic, like hypocritical things you see where actually he's like an asshole too. And like, so like those things are like funny to me, but it takes like really paying attention. to notice. And then I almost feel like the new writers for like the Netflix season is like NE or something, and then it's just completely not connected to where it's like these are different characters than the ones we knew before. And now a lot of people don't like it.
Interesting. I think I was watching an INFP INTJ coffee episode, and I think Alex was talking about that exact same thing. Is she doesn't get that kind of humor, like where it's just like something ironic, as like she needs to know the character and then see something contradictory, and then she finds that funny. Whereas like an NFP doesn't. I mean, we probably would still find that funny as well. But we wouldn't need to know the character necessarily to find it funny. We would still find it funny because they're contradicting themselves in some kind of way.
Yeah, I think I actually remember seeing that episode and relating to Alex a lot because I think it's almost like NI is trying to be one step ahead of what's going to happen, and then like if something shocking happens, or even like putting the character in a situation and being like, oh my gosh, how are they going to react to that? That's like really interesting. But yeah, I brought up Russian Doll because I was thinking about how I believe that NE style creativity seems almost like plugged into collective consciousness in this weird way where you might feel like the idea is just coming to you, but it is, I think, what people need to hear, like divine timing sort of thing. Did you have any thoughts on that maybe? Or
I think that you're right, but I don't think I would have recognized that without you saying something. Because like I just normally get this feeling like when things happen, I'm like, this is the perfect time for that. Like this is coming, or I'm also more so happy that that's happening because I feel like it's something that's needed. Like with the Russian Doll, I was really happy that something like that existed because I felt like it matched a lot of the things that I think about in an indirect way.
And I was thinking, man, people really need to think about diving into their past selves and realizing that they can't keep living life the way that they always have been right now, was my thought from looking or from watching it. But yeah.
And mine, I think mine was, I think we even talked about this, but mine was like the opposite direction, like take advantage of the opportunities when they're there. Like when you feel like you need to do the right thing, do it right then. Like what, because like that first scene, I don't want to give too many spoilers, so just warning, this is a little bit of a spoiler, but in the beginning of the first episode, she sees this guy drunk, fumbling around with stuff, and you can tell on her face she has the like feeling that she needs to do something about it, like a kind of like guttural reaction to do something about it. But then these other guys come over and say something that she could easily react to, and that was easier for her to react to these guys and feed into them because she'd rather have a little humor and feel like she's witty and funny than do the thing that would have been a little bit more difficult, which is to help this guy who's clearly like plastered and like knocking things down.
So that's even interesting to me, in I guess, to share that I did not even remember when watching that show that she saw him until they did the flashback.
Oh my God.
So that's how, when we've said, or when we've talked about how sort of NE style, it can be hard for me to pay attention and track, it's because I think it almost counts on you to have the SI to be able to jumble it up together in your brain and think about it. And like for me, like if something's just very subtle, like at the beginning, then I might not have caught it. Like if it's very important, but like if there's not, and see, as you were saying, that sometimes the things that are important, and I will try and like really let you know, like sometimes if they don't let me know, I like will gloss it over by accident or something.
Yeah, actually, interestingly enough, like the things that stuck out to me stuck out because they took a little extra time. So like
Ooh.
for that scene, they really zoomed in on her. They zoomed in on looking at both sides. She had the two decisions to make. There was just a whole lot of like, it was slower after, like compared to everything that had happened, which was just real time. She was just talking to the guy walking to the gas station or convenience store or whatever. And then they really slowed down and put emphasis on her seeing these two groups of people. And I'm just like, why did they show me this guy fumbling and knocking things over? What's the point of him being there? Why does she? And like the guy was just, the guy who worked at the counter was being really like evasive of answering the questions. Like she was like, who is that guy? Is that your buddy? Like, it looks like he needs help. And the guy who was on the counter was just like, I don't know what you're talking about. Don't worry about it. Like, just leave it alone. Like, I don't know what you're talking
Yeah,
about. Like, he was
that's so interesting because I forgot that happened. But I think something that I do is it's very hard for me to get into shows. And so I'll like play the first episode and sort of see like, well, we'll see if I like this. And it's almost like I expect it to get my attention as opposed to being like, I'm going to really try and pay attention. But then once I like have a connection with the character, once that's established, uh, then I'm like, I need to know what's happening. And then I'm like glued. But like, I'm almost like waiting for that to happen. And so now I'm realizing that, you know, I want to rewatch the first episode, but like sometimes in the first episode of any show, I'm probably going to be a little, is this really going to be good?
Right, you're being skeptical, you're like thinking about the quality. Is this something you want to continue, et cetera, et cetera. Actually, that's funny because my boyfriend does a lot of the similar things. Like when we first start watching something, he'll decide within like the first 20 minutes if we're watching something, if it's something he wants to see through to the end. Like we've started many movies, gotten 15 to 20 minutes in, and he's just like, I can't. I'm too mad at like everything that's happening right now. Like,
yeah, I get like that. But yeah, I guess something I wanted to talk about too before, like to conclude, or is what can I guess NFPs and NFJs. I don't know if we should talk about ENFP, ENFJ, or just NFP, NFJs generally. I wonder what are some things that we could do to really create works of art together. So I think what maybe we can do is you can say what I'm trying to think of how we could do this.
what if we talk about what we see in value in the other person's point of view?
Yes. Like if I can explain how an ENFP could help me, and also or what they should keep in mind when working with me, and then you could do the same thing maybe?
Okay, I like that. Yeah.
Okay. Would you like to go first?
Okay. So with ENFJs or NFJs in general, you guys bring that vision to the table, which is really important. I think for ENFPs, it's important for us to realize that though our ideas might be good, they might not be the best for the situation. And we need to hear out the external view of somebody who's going to be able to let you know if your idea is going to be well received and the best way to execute your idea, which you're going to get from other people. And NFJs have a really great way of seeing if people are going to like your idea, if people are going to get behind your idea, because an idea is only as powerful as the people behind the idea and about people who accept it. So you can have a billion great ideas, but if nobody likes your idea, there's no point to it. There's no point in putting all that effort. And another thing is lean on them to help you find a way to complete the idea and get it to go all the way through, because NFPs, I'm talking to you. You are so easily distracted by the next best idea. I know from experience. And NFJs will help you finish the idea and make it really good and make it impactful. And you know that you want to have some kind of impact. That's why you think about these things, to create the ideas in general. So take advantage of that so that you can complete it. And then NFJs, my advice to you guys in handling us would be, let us know what you like about the idea. Start with that. Like, give the benefit of the idea, what aspects you like, because we can always take away the good aspect and add other things onto it. But if we don't know, if we hear that the entire idea is bad, I mean, that's probably going to upset us because it was a waste of time, or we'll think, oh, your opinion's not valid because you don't like anything that I come up with, so I can't trust your opinion. So something that's good about the idea is a really great place to start. And then honest criticism about what we could do to improve the idea to make it something that can be accomplished.
That seems almost sort of like TE as well.
Yeah, in a way.
Well, like, not that we are not capable of that, but like, as opposed to criticizing like TI, the things wrong with the idea, and assuming that, you know, I mean, if you told an NFJ what's wrong with the idea, then they would be like, okay, cool, I'll use that when I'm refining. But like, I feel like maybe that could be debilitating for you guys if the NFJ is not also letting you know like what you could do about it, maybe.
Yeah, I think what we can do, or some kind of direction, is really nice, as opposed to just saying that it's not good or not going to work, or here's why people won't receive it well. Like, we want to know like how we can make it better, or like what direction to go in, because we can always make a new idea. But if we don't have anything to cling on to, it's going to be really difficult. Yeah.
Interesting. So in my experience, I would say that the biggest value that NFPs could give me is things to work with and also things to respond to. Like, I've learned so much about personality type just from talking with Crystal, my ENFP friend, because of the questions that she asks and also the things that she says that give me things to respond to. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have come up with probably anything, because it like makes me respond. Like, I mean, even like, I didn't realize that I thought that NE was plugged into the sort of collective consciousness, or I didn't even think about that. That was a response to something that you said, for example. And I think that NFPs have this effect on me where they say things and then it just gets me like going. Like, a lot of things that, I mean, I know Crystal has been surprised by this before, where like, I'll say, oh, I thought of that because of something you said. And she's like, well, I thought you just thought it. And she says that it's hard to imagine what I'm like without her there, because every time she sees me, she's there. And I'm like, okay, yeah. But like, I think maybe NFPs, your only experience of NFJs are how we respond to you. You don't know what it's like when we're sitting in a room by ourselves trying to come up with something. And so you guys are very helpful in getting ourselves thinking, and getting us started. And I think that's just amazing. And I think that if I have all the ideas on the table, then I am confident that I could pick the best one, or at least know where to start. And then to just get the ball rolling. Like, let's start with this one, and then we'll see how that goes, and then we'll move on to this one. Like, and I like delegating those things and sort of creative directing, like in accordance to a mission. And I think that if NFPs could realize that I am not being as judgmental to their ideas as they think, and that really I'm just trying to pick the best one for the moment in time and for the audience, and that I think any idea is a good idea. I'm just trying to think of what could be used, and how impactful it's going to be, and that maybe your idea would be good if you did it like on your own versus in whatever goal I was having, and maybe it would land amazingly on your own, but not so great in the context that I was trying to use it. And so, yeah. It's interesting. That's for sure. I think that understanding personality, and I think a lot of people know this dynamic whether or not they know personality if you work in a creative field, because it could be very disorienting, I think, when you think that the person is very similar to you, because maybe at a first glance they seem very similar, and then to come into conflicts in the ideation process can be like stressful, because we both want the same things and we both have good ideas, and so what's the problem is how I've felt sometimes. Do you resonate with that?
I do. And I think like that's when our communication styles really come out.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've noticed that we need different kinds of validation
Yes.
for ideas. 100% we need like a different kind of validation, and we just have different ways of thinking. So even though we often are thinking about the same things, and I mean there's a reason why ENFPs and ENFJs are often social justice warriors, because we care about people and we want to make the world better. That doesn't mean we're doing it in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important to respect the other person's way of thinking, that it is different, and that even though we want to do the same thing, we're not going to see the same way to do it. And that's a beautiful thing. And it can be frustrating, but it's going to be ultimately better, because when we put our heads together, we can come up with way better ideas than if we're just on our own.
Yeah. And oh gosh, what was I going to say? Gosh, you were saying the social justice thing, and then after that, gosh, I'm sorry. I hate when I'm like this. I'm thinking, oh, since we want different types of validation, I think what can sometimes happen too is that we are validating each other, but in the ways that we aren't even picking up.
Yes.
So
yes.
I think, how do you like to be, or have you ever tried to validate, I guess, an NFJ's idea in a way that they didn't receive? It's hard for me to come up with an example right now, but I didn't know if you could. We can talk generally if you can't.
I think like what I would say is validating is like, I really like that. Like for me to say that I like that, that's validating for me. Like I would want someone to say that they like my idea. Or I don't know. Now it's hard to come up with an example.
I think I'm looking for like someone to take action on my idea.
So validating for you wouldn't even be anything being said, it would be the drive to actually complete it?
Yeah, thinking that it's worth doing. Like, I think that could be really like it, because I mean, like I was recently brainstorming like how to launch this Instagram for the company I work for, with NFJs and NFPs in the room, and I said ideas, and even if the NFP said good job, that doesn't really matter if they didn't do anything with my idea and did the thing that they wanted to do to begin with, because I guess I see it as like I'm very naturally collaborative. I don't necessarily see it as this is just a big brainstorming and we're going to just pick one and see how that goes. I see it as like we should really like think about this and see what is going to work the best for everyone, and let's collaborate to decide what that is. And sometimes I think it can feel like just throwing things around and then arbitrarily picking one. And this might be like controversial, or I'd be curious to hear what you guys think, but I almost think that it would work better if the NFJ was in charge of the project and the NFP was the executor. And I don't see that as like a hierarchy of like one type being better than the other. I feel like both might be more happy.
I agree.
Yeah.
Because if the NFP is in charge, I mean, that's a lot of stress. There's a lot of things to hold on to, like in your SI, which is already kind of limited. It's just like so many moving pieces. It'd be really hard to keep track of like the actual goal. Whereas if we're given a small piece that we can feel really proud about, that's going to add to the bigger piece, I think that would be more what's the word?
Rewarding.
Rewarding, yeah.
I've been in situations where an ENFP was in charge of me and they had an idea and they told me to do it, and I've been stuck like, what did they have in mind? I'm not sure if this is going to fit what they had in mind.
Yes, my ENFJ coworker says that all the time. Like, if she doesn't get enough direction about what the idea is, it doesn't matter how good the idea is if she doesn't know how to execute it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I'm not great at just picking up where they are. Like for example, an ENFP that I work with that's like made these cat pictures for April Fool's Day, and then I was the one to try and write the joke to go with it, and she made the pictures. I had no clue like what the point was and how that was an April Fool's joke, and I was like so afraid. Like I spent like 3 hours like stressed, like trying to guess what she wanted.
Did you ever ask her what she wanted to get across with them?
Well, she actually wasn't there that day.
Oh.
Well, maybe I would have, but like, and then my boss is like an ESFJ, and so her NE helped me a little bit. But the vibe that I get is that there wasn't anything in mind, perhaps, or at least you guys don't think that there was something in mind. But what I know, or perhaps fear, is that then if I take the pictures and then do what I want, then it's going to be like, that wasn't what I had in mind. And then it's like, okay, well, what did you have in mind? You know what I mean? Like that's happened where like, I just know that what I think would be best is different than what you think. And if I were to just do whatever I want, then it wouldn't be what you wanted. Like, cause like okay, so there was like these 3 pictures for April Fool's Day, and I wanted to weave them together to be a story, but the vibe I was getting from these NE users was that pretty much it's not that deep, just say something cute. I'm like, what is that? What is that? It's not like what's funny about it? I don't know. And it was like, you don't have to say that much. The picture already is saying things. And I'm like, well, then what is the picture saying so that I can say something that fits it?
Oh, So note for the ENFP, if you want to pass off a project to someone else, make sure you put down what your intention is with it so
Yeah,
somebody can pick up where you left off, because
absolutely.
everything is as clear to other people as it seems like to you. Like, you can't just keep everything vague, ENFPs. It doesn't work.
Yeah, and I think too that like if you do pass it off and it's vague, then don't be upset if somebody can't read your mind and does something a little bit different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because sometimes I felt like I was seen as not as creative or not as skilled for doing something different. Like, as if I wasn't. I think sometimes people like are checking for what their function is. So it's like an NFP would be like looking to see how good my NE is to try and see how creative I am or something. And if I don't
Mm,
show that, then it's like I'm not creative. Or like I might be looking for the NI too in people. So it's
mm.
like if there's like some sort of NE thing, at least how I was thinking during that is like I'm a social media person. I'm supposed to show that I am good at knowing what to say on posts. And I kept thinking like you have one job, Megan, and it's writing posts. And if I'm having a hard time with this, then what does that say about me? But it's like if I was just doing it myself, I wouldn't even have the problem. It's just sometimes reading the minds of NFPs that really put their all into the projects, like, and I don't even think I put my all into it that much. I don't
Hmm.
know. As far as the decisions, it's like that's why maybe it's important to make sure that you're validating the NFP's idea because they are putting their all into it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we filtered it through our FI, and we're like, okay, I really believe in this idea.
Yeah, and then it's hard for me because then when the idea doesn't land and I knew it wasn't going to, then how do I address that without being like, I told you so?
Well, like I said, just feel like I like this aspect of it. This is really nice. So, like with the cat picture, like, hey, this is super creative. I think it's really cute. Um, but can you bring some more guidance on like the what you're trying to get across with this picture? Like, what do you find so funny about it? Or even just ask other people like, hey, what's funny about this picture to you? What do you like about this picture? Like, get their opinions.
Oh yeah, that's actually really good. Is just to really like crowdsource information. I think NFPs are good at that to where like even if you had like vague direction, you'd be able to figure it out from using NE to
Yeah.
figure it out. And yeah.
Yeah, I normally prefer vague instruction because I don't like being
Ooh,
controlled.
I want to be controlled. Like if it's my responsibility to do something the way the person wants, then I want to be told exactly what that is. I don't like to be controlled, but if I'm being judged by somebody else's metrics, then I want to know what those things are.
Hmm. Interesting.
So I prefer to work on my own, honestly, but unless I'm the leader of the group, honestly, I don't do well underneath people, and I trying to come to terms with that. I mean, I want I want to be respectful and I want to do the right thing. I just think that sometimes it require a lot of um, attention because I have a lot of questions and like I it would be cool if I could learn to use my NE more to guess, but I mean that sometimes can um
Well, it's
not
like
really.
that blank page analogy. You're sitting there staring at the blank page, waiting for the perfect answer to come when,
Mhm.
like, any, I think is, well, and even with that situation, you're just like, I don't want to ask the wrong question because what if I offend this person by asking this
Yeah.
question? Whereas, if they get offended by your question, that's just ridiculous. But
Yeah. Anyway, any last words about the creative process?
Play to your strengths and take advantage of other people's strengths so that you can have the best possible outcome.
I love that. I love that. And go subscribe to Michelle.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me. This is a little bit of a long chat, but I feel like a lot of people will be interested. So, yeah. Well, thank you so much. And thank you all for watching. And yeah, have a good rest of your day, Michelle.
Yeah, you too.
All right, see ya. Bye.